This year's edition of Paris Tours, the 109th edition of the event, saw the riders go fast right from the very start. In fact, 31 riders breaking clear after 11 kilometres of the race, pushed very rapidly by a cross tailwind. Matteo Trentin of Team Etixx Quick-Step got himself into the early breakaway. So too did Tony Galopin, the local French favourite. But his was not the name on everybody's mouths this afternoon. Tony Galopin, who's watched this race since he was a youngster. In fact, he's won the under-23 version. The name that most people were talking about in the breakaway was Greg van Avermaet, the winner of Paris Tours back in 2011. A second group tried to come across the gap in the closing kilometres, a group of 19, but they could not make any inroads into the advantage of the breakaway group. When they came up to the penultimate climb of the day, the Côte de Beausoleil, it appeared that Lotto Jumbo were going to make the first move of the day. But that was discounting Matteo Trentin, who's got great form, having represented Italy just 2 weeks ago in the World Road Cycling Championships in Richmond, Virginia. Over the top of the climb, he was very rapidly joined by Greg van Avermaet, being extremely attentive. And it wasn't Tony Galopin, the Lotto Soudal rider, who joined the leading group of three. In fact, it was Tosh van der Sant, just 22 years of age. Over the top of the next climb of the day, it was Greg van Avermaet trying to do everything he could to consolidate the advantage of these riders. And when they came into the finishing straight, they had a 23-second advantage over the chasers. But it was at this point that Greg van Avermaet had a flattening front tyre, and he was unable to dispute the sprint down towards the end. And Matteo Trentin, the Italian, showed that he's got the confidence and the power in these closing days of the season. And when he came up to the finishing line, he produced a sprint that finished off a very rapid day. In fact, crossing the line, he stopped the clock with an average speed of 49.6 kilometres an hour. That's the fastest one-day classic in history, and he will now be the holder of the Ruban Jaune, or the yellow ribbon. Making it a great day out for Team Lotto Soudal. Another rider from their squad, the youngest rider in the breakaway group, Tijn Benoot, crossed the line in fourth place, just on the left-hand side in the red jersey. And so for him, it capped off an excellent day for Lotto Soudal in the 109th edition of Paris Tours. And what a day to remember for Matteo Trentin, the Italian rider, who so far this year has now won 4 races, but this certainly the biggest one that he's ever done, and at a record speed. So for Matteo Trentin, racking up once again a great victory towards the end of this season, bringing down the curtain on a 2015 season for Etixx Quick-Step and all of the riders around the top of the world, getting himself a magnificent victory. There's confirmation, Trentin ahead of van der Sant and Greg van Avermaet, with that flattening front tyre in the last kilometre having to settle for third place. So the last race as the curtain comes down on the 2015 season, and Matteo Trentin getting himself across the line ahead of Tosh van der Sant and Greg van der Sant, the winner of this race back in 2011.
Bernard Coupez donc qui nous rejoint également à son tour du côté